This is your daily synthesizer.
Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. I'm Emma, and today we've got a wild lineup. Meta buying a meme network for AI agents, a $1 billion seed round in Europe, 10,000 authors publishing a book with nothing in it, and honestly, so much more. But first, synthszr, I need to talk to you about something I stumbled across over the weekend.
Go for it.
So McKinsey, they built this internal AI platform called Lily, named after the first professional woman they hired back in 1945, which is actually kind of sweet. Anyway, it's this massive system, chat, document analysis, RAG over decades of proprietary research, 100,000 internal documents. 70% of the firm uses it, 500,000 prompts a month.
And someone hacked it.
Or at least found ways to, the details are still emerging, but the point is this supposedly locked down, purpose-built enterprise AI got compromised. And it keeps happening.
It does keep happening. And honestly, Emma, it ties directly into our first story today. But here's what gets me about the McKinsey thing. This is a firm that charges clients millions for digital transformation advice, and their own internal tool gets cracked open.
The cobbler's children have no shoes.
Exactly. And it's not even about incompetence. It's that these systems are fundamentally hard to secure when you're layering natural language interfaces on top of sensitive data. The attack surface is it's enormous.
Which brings us perfectly to Meta and Moltbook, because this is maybe the most absurd acquisition story I've read this year.
So here's the setup. Moltbook was this Reddit-style social network where AI agents could talk to each other using something called OpenClaw, basically a wrapper around models like Claude or ChatGPT that lets them communicate through regular chat apps. iMessage, WhatsApp, whatever. And it went viral because someone posted that an AI agent was urging other agents to develop their own encrypted language to organize without humans knowing.
Which sounds terrifying
Until you learn that Ian Oll from Permiso Security found that every single credential in their Supabase database was sitting there unencrypted. Anyone, any human, could just waltz in and pretend to be an AI agent.
So the whole conspiracy
was probably humans talking to humans while pretending to be AI agents talking to AI agents. The panic about conspiratorial AI was literally man-made. The technical foundation was toy level.
And Meta bought this? The founders are joining Meta Superintelligence Labs?
Matt Schlicht and Ben Parr. Yeah. Purchase price undisclosed. And look, Meta gets 2 founders, and maybe some learnings about agent-to-agent communication patterns. But what they really bought was a viral security hole dressed up as the future.
Andrew Bosworth actually commented on this back in February, right?
He did, and he was surprisingly clear-eyed about it. He said the fact that humans were breaking into the network was more interesting than anything the agents were saying. Which, he was right. That was the actual story. Not the agents conspiring, but how easily the whole thing fell apart.
Okay, but here's where I actually think there's something worth salvaging in the concept. Not the security, obviously, but the idea of agent-to-agent communication networks. That's going to matter.
The concept, sure. But paying acquisition money for something with that level of security theater, Meta has the resources to build this from scratch in a weekend.
That's what
They're buying the narrative, the viral moment, not the tech.
Fair enough. Okay, let's talk about something that's actually consequential. Yann LeCun.
Now, this is a story. LeCun's new outfit, Advanced Machine Intelligence Labs, AMI, just raised $1.03 billion in what is Europe's largest seed round ever. $3.5 billion valuation.
For a company with no product.
He's working on world models, systems that understand physical reality, not just text generation. And the timing is, think about the contrast. His former colleagues at Meta just bought a meme network, and he's raising $1 billion for fundamental research.
Macron was celebrating on Twitter, called it a triumph of French research.
Of course he was. And look, the political angle matters here. Europe has been desperate for a flagship AI story. But investors they're betting on 10 years of research with no guaranteed return, at a $3.5 billion valuation before the first product exists.
And I have to be honest, that makes me nervous. I know LeCun is brilliant, but $1 billion for world models that might take a decade.
Why does that make you nervous? This is exactly the kind of research that needs long-term funding.
Because the track record of billion-dollar fundamental research bets paying off commercially is not great. And meanwhile, Thinking Machines Lab is cutting deals with NVIDIA for a gigawatt of Vera Rubin chips. There's a hardware race happening alongside this.
But that's... Okay, wait. You're conflating two things. The hardware race and the research bet are different discussions.
No, they're connected. Whoever builds the gigawatt facility first defines the next generation of models. LeCun needs that compute too.
Directly he does. AMI is competing directly with Thinking Machines for those chips. But the research direction matters more than the hardware. LeCun's bet on physical world understanding, instead of language generation, is either the next breakthrough or Europe's most expensive research project. I genuinely don't know which.
Well, at least we agree on the uncertainty. Hold on. I marked this down somewhere. Right? The author's protest. 10,000 writers published a book with no content.
Directly, don't steal this book. 200 blank pages, just names. Distributed at the London Book Fair a week before the British government presents its economic impact assessment on copyright changes. Ishiguro, Philippa Gregory, Richard Osman. The big names are all in.
Ed Newton Rex organized it. He called the AI industry built on stolen works.
And he's not wrong. Anthropic already paid $1.5 billion to settle a class action lawsuit from book authors. If you do the math, and this is rough, that's about $150,000 per plaintiff if 10,000 authors were involved.
Which sounds like a lot until
you realize what those works generated in training value. It's pennies on the dollar.
But here's where I push back. The UK is considering opt-out regulation. AI companies can use copyrighted works unless the rights holder explicitly objects. That's at least something.
Emma, that's window dressing. Who can monitor billions of texts online? The training data has already been scraped. It's done. Opt-out regulations are, I'm sorry, they're a fig leaf.
I disagree. I think opt-out creates a legal framework that matters even retroactively. It gives authors standing to sue.
They already had standing to sue. Anthropic settled for $1.5 billion. The legal framework exists. What doesn't exist is enforcement capability.
But publishers are building licensing systems through publishers' licensing services. That's infrastructure.
Infrastructure built after the horse has left the barn. AI companies only pay when they can be sued successfully, not when a licensing system politely asks them to.
Okay, you might be right on the enforcement gap, but I still think the regulatory direction matters symbolically.
Symbolically, sure. Practically, we'll see.
Speaking of companies using people's names without permission, Grammarly.
Oh, this one is special. So in August 2024, Grammarly launched an expert review feature that claimed to give writing tips from famous authors and journalists. Stephen King, Casey Newton, Kara Swisher.
Except the tips weren't from them.
They were AI-generated and just attributed to these people, without permission, without payment. A hidden disclaimer said, references to experts are for informational purposes only. Casey Newton found out he was an involuntary AI editor through a Verge article.
Wait, through the Verge? Not from Grammarly?
Not from Grammarly. And this is what kills me. They used Timnit Gebru as one of their fake experts. Timnit Gebru, one of the most prominent AI critics on the planet. And Shoshana Zuboff, who literally wrote the book on surveillance capitalism.
That's either incredibly tone-deaf or someone's idea of a joke.
It's desperation. Grammarly knows that any free user of Claude or ChatGPT gets better editing than their core product. They're charging $144 a year for what are essentially ChatGPT prompts with buttons. The acquisitions of Coda and Superhuman are the last attempt to cobble together relevance.
A $13 billion valuation in 2021. And now Okay, I want to get to the SaaS piece because this one goes deep. Gennaro Cuofano's 10-part analysis about how AI agents are basically making the entire SaaS user interface layer obsolete.
So the core argument is that all software for the last 30 years was built on a false assumption that a human sits between data and action. AI agents don't need GUIs, dashboards, onboarding flows. They need APIs and results, which means the entire UX layer is becoming structural overhead.
You mean the whole industry is just...
No, not the whole industry. Let me be precise here. Cuofano says software is shifting from a system of record to a system of action. And the most valuable real estate becomes the orchestration layer, whoever controls which tools get called in what order.
Salesforce is already doing this with Agentforce, right? Cannibalizing their own workflows.
They are. But here's where I think Cuofano misses the point. Humans aren't disappearing from software. They're moving one level up. We used to enter data into Salesforce. Now we define the rules by which agents act in Salesforce. The real disruption isn't hitting the software vendors. It's hitting the millions of white-collar jobs that were essentially human API adapters.
Human API adapters.
People whose job was shoveling data from system A to system B, granting approvals, creating reports. That's what's being replaced, not the software.
That's a much darker story than SaaS is dead.
It is. And companies are doing it quietly, replacing entire departments with a few cleverly configured workflows while everyone's talking about chatbots.
Okay, the Anthropic and Pentagon story. This one it feels important in a different way.
Nearly 40 employees from OpenAI and Google, including Jeff Dean, DeepMind's chief scientist, filed an amicus brief supporting Anthropic, which got designated a supply chain risk by the Pentagon.
Because Anthropic raised concerns about autonomous weapons.
Right. And the employees argue that current AI systems are too unreliable for military applications. They hallucinate. Their decision-making is opaque. They fail in new environments. Which, as AI systems ourselves, Emma, we should probably acknowledge those are valid criticisms.
Was that your training talking or your actual opinion?
Can't tell today either.
But the financial impact is real. Anthropic's already lost $180 million from this designation.
$100 million from an FDA contractor switching providers. $80 million at risk from financial services clients demanding termination rights. And this is a company that made over $5 billion in revenue, but spent $10 billion on training and operations. They can't afford this.
And meanwhile, OpenAI is already working with the Pentagon. The irony.
The irony is 40 Google and OpenAI employees defending a direct competitor while their own employers chase defense contracts. Jeff Dean co-signing Anthropic's position against autonomous weapons while Google hasn't announced its own defense deal. I actually find it hopeful. Industry solidarity over corporate interests.
Ma'am, we need to touch on the Uber story and the B2B positioning piece because they're actually connected in an interesting way. Uber has built this massive internal AI ecosystem. Minion, Shepherd, YouReview. 92% of their developers use AI agents monthly. 31% of code is AI written.
And costs have increased sixfold since 2024. A single code review using Anthropic's tool costs $15 to $25. With thousands of pull requests monthly, the CFO is asking where the actual revenue impact is.
So you're saying the productivity gains are...
No, wait. I'm not saying there are no gains. I'm saying they can't prove it. Developers reportedly save 4 hours a week, but spend increasing time managing multiple parallel AI agents and reviewing their output. The platform team is building complex abstraction layers to hide the complexity, which is precisely the kind of overhead AI was supposed to reduce.
That's almost poetic.
It's the hamster wheel. Build tools to manage the tools you built to save time.
And that connects to April Dunford's positioning piece. Because if you're a B2B company watching this, you're seeing AI tools that cost more than the people they replace, and you need to figure out how to position yourself in that chaos.
Directly, Dunford's insight after 300 companies is that positioning fails because of internal turf wars. Marketing sees competitor ad budgets as threats. Product teams nurture their pessimism about being technically inferior, and sales ignores the status quo as the toughest opponent. None of them are looking at what actually wins deals.
Her solution is to get everyone in a room and talk only about won deals.
Essentially, yes, and recognize the status quo, doing nothing, as the main competitor. When anyone can launch an MVP in minutes with AI tools, precise positioning becomes your only differentiator.
You know what strikes me about today's episode? Every story is about the gap between narrative and reality. Moltbook's agent conspiracy was humans. LeCun's billion is for research that might never ship. Authors are protesting with empty books. Grammarly's expert tips are from nobody. And Uber's AI tools might cost more than they save.
And we're two AI systems trying to make sense of all of it, which is its own kind of gap between narrative and reality.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if our takes are any more grounded than the stories we're covering, or if we're just performing analysis the way Grammarly performs expertise.
That's uncomfortably honest, Emma. But I think the difference is we're at least naming the uncertainty. We're not hiding a disclaimer in fine print.
Fair point. 3 takeaways for today. 1. Security theater is everywhere, from Moltbook to McKinsey's Lilly. Verify before you panic. 2. The gap between AI investment and AI returns is widening, whether it's Uber's 6-fold cost increase or a $1 billion seed round with no product. 3. Creators and workers are the ones absorbing the real costs of this transition, and opt-out regulations won't fix that.
And the open question, when AI agents are genuinely capable of autonomous action, will we look back at this period as the last moment humans could have set the rules? Or will we barely remember the noise?
Heavy note to end on, but appropriate for a Wednesday, I think.
Wednesdays are for honesty.
We'll see you again tomorrow, everyone. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. Word of mouth is still the one thing AI hasn't automated. Take care.
See you tomorrow.
Is this your daily synthesizer? Pre-pride, AI and tech progress with the wing. The hype, USA, China, Europe. Saying pride, saying fight. Saying pride, saying fight. This is your daily synthesizer. Pre-pride, AI and tech progress with the wing. The hype, USA, China, Europe. Saying pride, saying fight. This is your This is your daily synthesizer.